With your permission, I will start the opening of this conference. I would like to introduce our moderator, Vladimir Remyga, who will be the moderator of the roundtable. This roundtable, the Russian-Soviet-Chinese strategic partnership during the World War II, the Yalta peace and the development of the Yalta world order is performed in the framework of the International Scientific and Diplomatic Congress, Yalta Peace, Historical Experience and Prospects. We were present at the conference yesterday in Palmyra Palace. We have here our students, the students of history and foreign languages, the students who are learning the Chinese language, and for them the participation in our roundtable and conference will be very important. I would like to say hello on behalf of the rector of our Yalta Humanitarian and of the Crimea Federal University, Andrei Falayev, but here we have the one of the heads of the international department, Mr. Gabriela. So today our Crimea Federal University and the Yalta Humanitarian and Pedagogical Academy are the co-organizers of this roundtable. First of all, I would like to introduce the floor to the director of our Humanitarian and Pedagogical Academy, Natalia Galova. Good afternoon, dear guests. For Yalta and for Humanitarian and Pedagogical Academy, it's a great honor because due to the current circumstances, the international activities and the International Congress for the Crimea has a strategical meaning, because during the last 5 years we felt various influences of the siege of international affairs, but nevertheless we try to do something in this direction, and probably it's very important that this Congress is provided in such a year when we celebrate this anniversary of the victory of the United Nations and the UNESCO and the 75th anniversary of the Yalta conference. And after the end of the World War II, there appeared new strategical tasks in the framework of Russian-Chinese relationship, and we are very happy that this framework is being enlarged at the moment, and it includes the education as this is our sphere. There is a huge interest of the Chinese students to learning the Russian language and Russian culture, and last week in Sevastopol there was an international forum of universities which are members of the Eurasian University Association, and we discussed the questions of cooperation and partnership and the possibility to get double diplomas for the students of China and Russia. And there is a very high interest of young Chinese scientists to postgraduate programs in the Russian Federation, and each year at least 10 young citizens of China receive the diplomas of PhDs in pedagogical science, and they pass their themes. First of all, in the sphere of art, we have a lot of musicians coming from China, and this direction, art and culture, is on high demand. We have been trying to cooperate for a long time, and we have the examples of internships of our professors in China, and at the moment one of our professors of academical vocals is working in one of the Chinese universities. He's working in English. And we are very happy that this interest is not unilateral, and a lot of Russian students are interested in learning the Chinese language and in studying Chinese culture. And this year we had the first graduation of the bachelor course in the Chinese language, and those students had 2 long internships in China. They even passed an exam in Chinese, and many of them are still learning the Chinese language because it's extremely difficult, and many of us can say ni hao, but this phrase can be said with different intonations. I also had an experience of working in one of the universities, and the director was an ethnic Chinese person, and I also tried to learn Chinese and to understand how difficult it is, but at the same time it's extremely strategically important because China is the leader in technologies, and the cooperation of Russian young people and our support is incredibly important, and the support of Chinese scientists will bring us to new insights and will improve our life. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you for this great honor of providing this event, and I hope that it will be very fruitful and useful for the both sides, and I'm sure that we will find some ways to strengthen and to make our cooperation even more useful. Thank you very much. We are providing this round table on the basis of our academy, and it's the first step in the development of our relationships with those who are involved in the cooperation with China. And as a first step, we offer to make an agreement between the Chinese Center of Higher Technologies and the Yalta Humanitarian Pedagogical Academy. It will be signed by the Academician of the Russian Academy of Science, Vladimir Remyga, and from the Humanitarian Academy, the director. Please come here. Thank you. The landmark document has been signed. I hope that it will help us to develop the Russian-Chinese relationship. Distinguished colleagues, as today, due to a number of reasons, a lot of guests could not come here to Yalta. First of all, as you know, due to quite a complex situation with the coronavirus, especially from China, but nevertheless, many of them are present here with the help of video conferences, and they will give their speeches through video. In accordance with the Chinese tradition, I was charged to moderate this event. In fact, when we created it and we planned it for May, some of the members of the organizing committee asked whether we needed to create such an event in Crimea because of all of these anniversaries, as the Chinese were not present at Yalta conference for certain reasons, but their role in the Second World War was, as we believe, is underestimated. And secondly, our Congress is actually dedicated to the main theme, to provide scientific argumentation for the meeting of the leaders of the Security Council of the United Nations, and that's why the role of China is impossible to overestimate. And it seems to me that the main role in this meeting, which has already been voiced by our president, is to provide Russian-Chinese cooperation. That's why we decided to provide this conference, and we, in the organization of this meeting, took part the major institutes who are responsible for Russian-Chinese relationships, such as Russian-Chinese Committee of Peace, Friendship and Development, the Russian-Chinese Friendship Society, the regional branch Crimea Chinese Friendship Society, which I have the honor of being a representative, and the Society Crimea Chumbo. Here we have Mr. Potapnik, who is the head of the society, and he will provide a speech today. But we pay a lot of attention to our relationships with China, and the core of our relationship is the cooperation of the European cooperation and the Chinese initiative One Belt, One Road. Yesterday we were present at a conference provided by Mr. Glaziev, and this is the main theme about which we have to negotiate, and there will be special speeches about that. We are very short of time, and I would appreciate your advice. We'll have several speeches from China provided through Skype, and I would like to ask all the speakers to be very, very brief and very precise. There will be one speech provided, recorded. Oh no, I'm sorry. Let us start with Yuri Yakovets. Yesterday we had a reception, and one of the first toasts was in his honor. He is the chairman of the organization committee, and he's a great enthusiast of Russian-Chinese relationships. We have provided together 3 conferences so far on the cooperation in St. Petersburg, and next year we will provide the 4th conference in the framework of scientific cooperation, and this conference in the framework of the program of cooperation in this direction. So I would like to start our session with the speech by Yuri Yakovets. As his report is very comprehensive, please be very attentive. There are very interesting issues raised in his speech, so later on we will ask questions. As you see, we have here Yuri Tavrovsky, one of the leading Russian specialists in Chinese culture, and he's the head of the Russian-Chinese Committee of Peace, Friendship and Development. He, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, he provides a webinar, fantastic lectures by contact and form. He invites the leading experts. He is here on the right, and our old and very reliable friend, Mr. Genchabi. He was present here on the conference in February when we provided a conference. At the moment he's in China. He is a member of the board of the International Association of Crimean Friends, and he's representing our association. Where is Yuri Yakovets? He's already on the screen. Okay. You're welcome. He's on the screen. Welcome. The president of the International Pitirim Sorokin Institute, Nikolai Kondratyev, the chairman of the Yalta committee. traditional partnership between Russia and China. I can't hear because people are interrupting each other, trying to understand whether they can hear the speaker or not. During several thousand years, the Chinese civilization was formed about 4,800 years ago, and it reached its climax in the Middle Ages. And China had 1/4 of the world population in the Middle Ages. Again, people are interrupting her here. And it created new networks and connections with other civilizations. The Russian civilization appeared approximately in the 6th century before Christ, where there was created a network of policies of cities, and there was created Bosphorus Kingdom, and this civilization existed for about 1,000 years, and in the first 1,000 years it came into battles. In the 11th century, around the whole Europe, the Russian Slavonic civilization created networks with Europe. And the third stage was Eurasian Civilization, starting from the 16th century, when Russia, during the time of Peter the Great and Alexander the Great, developed its territory and stretched from Europe to Asia and the Northern America. And there are some phone talks I can't hear. And during about 1,000 years, we created dialogues and partnerships between Russian and Chinese civilizations. This was the Great Silk Route, which connected the North Caucasus and the Crimea, and Marco Polo, on his way back from China, traveled this route. And the further years, when about 500 years ago, there is a trumpet, I can't hear, in the 17th century, but the most developed connections we reached after the revolutions in Russia in 1722 and in China. It started in 1911 and finished in 1949, and during this period Russia helped a lot to China, especially during the Second World War and the liberation of Chinese people. And we were inviting Chinese students to the Soviet Union. And Russia, the Soviet Union also helped during the Korean War, but during the Great Leap Forward, the friendship was destroyed, and for a long period and we only started to re-establish our relationships in the end of the previous century, when we signed the Strategic Cooperation Agreement and we started to develop our international cooperation with not only with China but with a lot of various international organizations. But unfortunately, I can't say that we have not achieved any great successes in the convergence of our civilizations. For the 4 decades, the investment into the economy of China reached $134 billion, and we created a lot of dialogues. In Russia, we also are more oriented to the West, and our real accomplishments are not that successful. But today we are witnessing the creation of principally new conditions for the convergence of civilizations that will be not just economical partnership. It will be the use of the Russian market, which is flooded with Chinese products, and we are also providing fuels to China. Thank you, Yuri Yakovets. In fact, there is the end of this report, which we decided not to air now, but it is published on our website, and you will see how deep and interesting this report is. Now we will get to the next speaker. We are giving the floor to our really old friend, Mr. Parmenkwai, who represents here one of the biggest in the world railroad construction corporation. He will tell about it. We have been collaborating for more than 20 years, and we believe that such a cooperation should have very specific forms. Good morning, dear Vladimir, Natalia, dear scientists, dear guests, dear professors and students. My report is dedicated to the theme Yalta 2, the basics of coexistence of all the peoples of the world. 75 years ago, here in Yalta, in Crimea, took place the Yalta Conference of the leaders of the 3 superpowers, and during this conference they elaborated the basics of the post-war world order on the principles of cooperation of the 3 great superpowers, and they created the United Nations as a platform for the dialogue and cooperation of all the countries of the world. And although there were discussions, disputes, and military conflicts, nevertheless, the Yalta peace was laid the foundations for the peaceful coexistence and helped to prevent nuclear war. And this century, in this difficult period when the humanity is trying to survive, we see the strength of the trends of anti-globalizations, but unilaterality will bring us to a deadlock, and all the countries should follow the principles of cooperative discussion and mutual respect, and they should protect universal safety and share with each other their development and their discoveries and together decide the fate of the world. We support the ideas of Yalta Peace II, and its principle is the elaboration of a long-term strategy for a sustainable multipolar world order on the basis of constructive dialogue and mutually beneficial partnership of the civilizations and the leading countries. We are thankful and to the chairman of the Yalta Club, Yuri Yakovets, for his prominent ideas and organizational work. His colleagues and their supporters from other countries created the Yalta Civilization Club in 2007. I'm working in the Chinese company, and we are providing our activities in Russia. We are constructing the underground in Moscow. We are creating a speedway Moscow-Kazan in Nizhegorod region. We are investing into the development of infrastructure and residential compounds. So we are creating a new Silk Way which will connect Asia and Europe. In the same time, I'm also a scientist of the Organization of Support of Global Civilization, OCGC. It's one of the international scientific institutions which is working towards the research of the future human civilization. Organization of Support of Global Civilization has the goal of solving the problems of civilization conflicts. We can see that Russia and China are supporting all the United Nations, not only on the words by their deeds. Last month, Sergei Lavrov and his Chinese colleague Wang Yi made a common statement, and they voiced once again their opinion of China and Russia, who are supporting the authority of the United Nations, who are following the Charter and the principles of the United Nations and support and practice multipolarity. Russia and China are the permanent members of the Security Council of the United Nations, and no global problem can be solved without a common effort by China and Russia. And we believe that only under the authority of the United Nations and UNESCO, all the peoples of the world will be able to overcome the modern civilization crisis and elaborate the strategies and preventive measures to establish sustainable multipolar world order on the basis of dialogue and partnerships of civilizations and states. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Parminkwai. I would like to consult with you. Maybe we will ask 1-2 questions if you need, and the rest of the questions we will leave till the end. If we have if we have time in the end, we will discuss more questions. So, if there are any questions, please, you're welcome to ask. Tell me, please, you have been for some time in Yalta and in the Crimea. Have you noticed any objects of investment so that we could attract the resources of your company for the development of our region and to develop tourism here? Thank you very much for this question. We have come as a businessman, first of all, and as a scientist, and I'm very glad to hear this question. Together with Vladimir, we have discussed some commercial projects, and we have studied the possibilities of investment and to create and develop in the Crimea some infrastructural projects. Thank you very much. I would like to open up a small secret. We have signed with Mr. Berminkwai a memorandum of cooperation to construct some infrastructural projects, and one of the directions is to create a transport and logistics center. We have sent a letter and we are waiting for the answer about the creation of transport and logistics center in Crimea. And if you or your students would like to take part in this project, we will not announce it now, but we will say just in 2 words. If to be brief, it's a shame what's happening in the Crimea. We have built a bridge and there are freight trains going through this bridge. We have a wonderful airport and our transport potential is more than 100 million tons of goods, and we transport only 5%. The Minister of Transport has been removed, and wait and see, everybody else will also be removed. Where is the money? They invest so much money in the Crimea, but where is it? There is no payback. So this money should be returned. Thank you very much. If there are any more questions, we will come back to them later. We would like to ask to speak at our conference one of the most prominent sinologists of the Russian Federation, the director of the Institute of Oriental Studies, Alexey Maslow. Very briefly, he's a person who very deeply knows China. He has been a monk in a Shaolin monastery for 2 years, and now he is the head of the Institute of Oriental Studies. I am very proud of being acquainted with him. I have been a professor for 8 years, and he's one of my students with whom we have been working for a long time together. Let us listen to him. He quite often speaks on the TV in different programs. Dear friends, it is a high honor for me to speak at such a congress. I would like to speak about 3 ideas which have laid the foundation for the cooperation between China and Russia, and which were laid before the World War II. Before the World War II, Russia and China were faced with certain threats, and these were not the threats of fascism or the war with Japan and Germany, but this was the threat of the revision of the boundaries. And during that time, it became obvious that they have to protect the laws. And today we are facing nearly the same problems. We don't have such a tough situation, but we are speaking about the efforts of revision of the world order and the world organizations which have been formed during the last several decades. And the second very important issue is that in the end of the war, Russia and China were the parties which initiated the creation of the United Nations and the Security Council. And this was the organization which should have been surveilling the situation in the world. And today Germany and Japan, the countries who were not taking part in the creating the Security Council, but which have developed a lot, are still beyond the Security Council. The people who are saying that they can't hear, don't let me hear what's going on. And the Security Council is created in order to prevent taking the decisions which might be threatening the world peace. Another very important idea is that China and unfortunately they are arguing about what they can hear or not, and I can't hear through them. Sometimes the decisions are not taken in the interest of everybody, but the efforts to say that these organizations are not working and that we need to revise everything. Of course, life is changing, the world is changing. But such efforts are only destabilizing the situation, and we are seeing the world collapsing into disconnection and deglobalization. And here it is important to remember the results of the World War II and probably first of all try to make the institutions work correctly, the existing institution. The next issue is that the coronavirus has exposed the problems which had been there before the pandemic. These are unfair systems of redistribution, the efforts to create some coalitions and isolation of separate countries like Russia and China, and trying to subordinate everybody to a unified currency system, and very many countries and organizations are not ready to this disconnection. And the world which has been created after the war and those organizations which were created after the war and could not work very quickly and efficiently, because we don't have a common plan of reacting to such a pandemic. I would like to speak about the peculiarities of disconnection. This way which Russia and China are going it's our choice, and we should increase the investment relationship between China and Russia, and we together are changing the situation in our trade cooperation, and we are opening Russian universities on the territory of China, and while the world is disconnected, Russia and China are working in more close cooperation. And it's very important to understand that we have the strategic policy for China and for Russia, and it's important to respect each other and to remember that neither Russia is a part of Chinese project nor China is the part of the Russian project. We should cooperate in the development of science, of cybersecurity, of technologies. And here and now Russia and China are creating such a situation, and I hope that in the future world Russia and China will set an example of stability and mutual understanding and trust and respect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alexey. You will often see Alexey Maslow in TV programs, and his report is also published on the website, and you can study it there. And I would like now to give a floor to Remyga. I would like to say that we have talked before this conference, and we are actually coming from the same sandbox. Actually, Mr. Termergaliev is the president of the Russian-China Invest Fund of Regional Development with the volume of 100 billion here. So there is a very respectful financial base under our Chinese-Russian relationship. Very much, Vladimir Nikolaevich. Remyga. I am the director of the Institute of Economy and Management in our Humanitarian Pedagogical Academy, and I am very thankful for this opportunity to briefly discuss the problems of Chinese tourism in the Crimea, because we are speaking about Heimat, but if we develop Chinese tourism, we will much quicker find the interaction points and first of all, I would like to say that in fact the administration of Crimea is very interested in attracting Chinese tourists to our semi-island, and we had spoken about this many times, and this is a unique region in the Russian Federation where you can see there is a very strong natural, climatic and historical cultural potential, which is a great potential for the development of resort and tourist direction. In 2018 we had 1.7 thousand tourists from China, and the first tour to Crimea took part in September 2016, and Vladimir was the initiator and the guide of our Chinese friends. There were representatives of 36 countries who entered the international organization Friends of Crimea, and our Business and Cultural Center also can be involved here. In 2018 we opened Social Cultural Center of China to attract tourists, and last year we had 4,000 tourists, which is 2.5 times more than the previous period. We have already firms who are intended for bringing here Chinese tourists, and the positive feedback that we get from our Chinese guests are spread out in the social networks, and they can attract certain new clients. But we have problems and perspective. First of all, the Chinese tourists are very much interested in our products. This is our cosmetics made of natural ingredients and wines. Our Chinese friends are more oriented on cultural tourism, and they are very thankful tourists, and we should attract them as actively as possible. They are not at all interested in beach tourism, and organizers should be aware of that. They prefer historical and cultural places, and we have a lot of places like that, and we certainly should actively use this potential. There was research, and they say that They are ready to live in Russia about $6,000 and about $4,000 for entertainment and purchases. And during 7-8 days, they spent about $1,300. So, developing those directions, we should take into account these numbers. They are more interested in cultural, educational, ethnical, and gastronomic tourism and shopping. The red routes, the so-called red routes, the monuments of communist history, and this also should be taken into consideration. The Chinese tourists are usually interested in something either very unique, something they don't have in China, or on the other hand, something very similar to China. They love palaces, and we have a lot of palaces in Crimea. An average size of a visit-free group is 30 people, and the average age is 58 years, and the individual tourism is for people from 30 to 35 years old, and their average duration is of trip is about 8 days. These are mostly middle class. These are mostly poor Chinese tourists, and middle class and rich tourists don't come here. And this is also an issue to discuss and to develop. Please pay attention to the fact that we have a number of problems which should be solved with your help. First of all, we will have to translate the tourist web portal into the Chinese language. We should remember that they are active internet users, and it will take at least 5 years of hard work to create our sinologist, and I'm very happy and I'm very thankful to our academy, and I would like to thank Natalia and her associates for the development of this direction. But we need not only Chinese language, we also need sinologists. We need people who will be able to organize group tourism and who will organize their logistics, and I will appreciate it if you will use my help in this issue. And we also have a governmental plan of comprehensive cooperation, but we don't have the confirmation of the readiness to cooperate from the Chinese side. So these are the directions we should develop, and availability indicator is the opening of the Chinese house. It was announced in autumn, but as far as I know, this has not happened, and we should certainly be working for that. So the brief conclusion is that the guests who are coming here may be considered as business tourism, and this direction can also be developed. We should take into account the peculiarities and the preferences of the Chinese tourists. What we are expecting from them? Are we expecting money? This is one story. If we are going to, if we are expecting employment and development of this sphere of economics, then it's another story. Are we expecting something else? There is a huge field of to develop, and Natalia also told me that last year we created and we even negotiated the educational plans for the Chinese tourism. This project has not been realized due to coronavirus, but I hope that we will get to this cooperation as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is a special topic. Last year we brought here 6 middle-range companies from China, and we didn't have to negotiate with the political bureau this tourism. The first problem is we don't have a Chinese restaurant in Crimea. Together with Mr. Perminkwai, we will go to look at the premises for the Chinese restaurant. The second problem is accompanying. And here I will probably ask your students to be involved into this nice business and taking part in such affairs. And we also planned a tour to Artek of 50 school children. Unfortunately, it didn't work as well. It seems that it's a pretty simple thing, but Crimea paid for these 6 groups, but it doesn't work. There is no engine who will uncoil this situation from within, and we need that very much. In Sochi, they plan 2 million Chinese tourists, and they have direct flights. There is no end of work to be done, and I wish you all the success. And we will now be joined by Mr. Genjin Li from China. We had a lot of speakers who wanted to speak here from China, but in fact, even here we have some problems. There is no Zoom in China. There is no Zoom in Crimea. That is why we have to connect with such a homebred way via Skype. And together with Mr. Genjin Li, we took part in February in the conference in Livadiyski Palace, and he made a brilliant report. Let us listen to him.
Господин Г, вы слышите нас? А мы вас слышим плохо. Сделайте какой-нибудь звук. Нет, вот я что-то слышу. Включите микрофон. Еще не было ни одной онлайновской конференции, где бы не было доклада. Не все у нас так.
Do you hear me? Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. Vladimir and Alexey, we have many times in Crimea and in Moscow. We have talked many times, and now I would like to speak to you from Beijing and tell you the following information. First of all, here we have the day of the formation of our economy. It's already a good sign, and everybody is free today, and nobody works today, and I can't make any forecasts now. But this is another place. Now we only connect. We can only connect. And here we have very strong manufacturers. But at the moment we are lacking the Russian products. All the agricultural products are still not enough. we are asking for more and more. We have three ways. First is for is the street which is like your Arbat. The second, for example, people who know about Crimea, about Russia, trademen and so on. And the third group, these are businessmen. But I would like to tell you very specific news. An official representative of the international organization. I have been not so far, not so long ago in Eurasian Autonomous Republic. In Harbin and Tan. It's a big city. And my task was, my secretary told me to go there once more and go through the route Beijing, Harbin, Tsian, Kunsan, Khabarovsk, Moscow, Simferopol and Yalta, and backwards. And Crimea is also included. And your goods are coming to China. There are many partners, Asian partners, who are convincing me to work with you. Secondly, $1 million of rubles, the first place in the world on tourism, and the first place is in Russia. Through me, thousands of people have passed through me to Russia during the last 5-6 years as an international surveillance officer. I have been 50 times to Ukraine, for example. And this year we had 5,000 of tourists who wanted to go to Ukraine, but they could not. And if this year they don't allow us to come, maybe next year our clients are there are people who know everything about you. For example, our veterans who were in your country for nearly 30 years, and the fathers who created the economy. Not only your authorities and their children travel to China. And today, our association of the Friends of Crimea is also brilliant people. Our association is working at certain territories of Crimea. Secondly, we are speaking about arrests, about holidays, and for example, in the evening. But if we want to bring Chinese products, and probably we could bring Chinese traditional medicine here. It's one of the directions. And today we are lacking information. What people, what organizations, each month, each week, each quarter, each year, so that we could know where we can have rest, where it is useful and profitable. Today, we need first of all qualified specialists. If, for example, at the moment we don't have WhatsApp, but have only cat, the old. But if there is a kind of a club, then we will have to solve those problems, financial and so on. They were speaking about sinologists. We should know the Chinese food and the spiritual peculiarities. We need universities, academies, and it's important to understand why it is happening in such a way. At the moment, the pandemic is keeping us back. But as soon as it is gone, we should start very active tourism. And I am here to help. I will be in February and January in Crimea and in Moscow. And I have been here for 6 months during the pandemic, and as Mr. Maslow has said, we should be prepared. This is something that is coming. It's not just my wish or my willpower. These are 6 months of work, and for the first time I've been staying in a hotel for 6 months. In China, other people are helping me. A lot of businessmen, a lot of scientists. It will take a lot of time. I will not read the whole text, but I would like to say several things. At the moment we don't have political issues, we have strategical partners. For example, I promised first of all to come to Crimea, but now the pandemic is getting in the way. I certainly wish to solve this problem this year. And only local people can solve those problems. The other information is, I would like to say, in China and in Russia, the specialists in energy and agriculture, for example, we have 5G and we are ready for it. We just need now very concrete, very reliable partners. One Chinese partner is already here with the railroads to work together. Thank you very much. If there are any questions or offers, please be free to tell me, or through Mr. Ivanchenko, or through Yaroslav, or via Vladimir, so that we could receive the information beforehand and we could start working immediately. Have a good luck and I wish you great success. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Genshabay. He is our old friend and very reliable person. There will be no other possibility to ask him a question. So if there is a short question, please let us ask him. No, then you will be able to connect with him through us. I just wanted to say a few words about two issues he mentioned. We sometimes don't pay a lot of attention to the cooperation with China, and Chinese tourists sometimes say that they would like to eat some food that they know, like rice or something. Today we had breakfast with Valerie, and we thought about the year 1959 when there were a lot of Chinese students in the Moscow State University, and in the canteen, in the students' canteen, there was a special hall of Chinese food where the whole Moscow came to eat. It was very attractive for Chinese students. And now, how many Chinese students are there in Moscow State University? There are 12,000 Chinese students, and as they are thrown out of the United States and Europe, there will be more Chinese students here. That means that we have to provide them. And the second question is, we are speaking about the Chinese medicine. Frankly speaking, we sometimes speak about modern medicine, but I mean traditional Chinese medicine. In the Russian-Chinese Committee of Friendship and Development, there is a team who has offered an initiative to create a federal center of traditional Chinese medicine, because in Moscow we have about 120 centers of Chinese medicine. In 80% these are Kyrgyz and Kazakh people who are just pretending to be Chinese, but there are incredible Chinese doctors, and we want to suggest that those who have already had coronavirus, in Russia we have more than 1 million people who have already had coronavirus, who have already survived. But they say that the residual disease may stay with you for the rest of your life, and we probably should open in Crimea some rehabilitation centers to rehabilitate people after coronavirus, and this will be incredibly popular. and Mr. Genjiv is dealing with that. I would like to add here that the traditions of Chinese medicine are supported in Crimea, have been supported here for a long time, and in Saki there is a monument to a doctor. Unfortunately, I don't remember his name, but he practiced. Unfortunately, he was killed, and I think that it was just a coincidence, but there is a monument to this doctor, and he had a clinic of Chinese medicine, and your professor, I'm speaking to our students, Andrei Shi, his family is living in Sevastopol today, and they are providing very active work on the Chinese medicine. It's a very important issue. Thank you very much for your support to this theme, because Crimea is an incredibly favorable place to develop Chinese medicine, and those people who have come in touch with Chinese medicine know that it's very different from traditional medicine, and that it is conventional medicine, and it's incredibly effective. I would also like to add, in China there is a wonderful clinic It's a place of traditional medicine. It's the most, the biggest, the largest center. And we have a non-governmental investor, and we are going to merge Chinese tradition and Russian and Western non-traditional types of medicine. The Chinese traditional medicine uses hands and needles, and if we speak about coming to your territory, is there a territory for such co-partnership? And your specialists will work with us, and all the costs will be covered by the investor. If you have such a serious desire and interest. But we need a reliable local provider, and pandemic will be concerning everybody. So that will be very much on demand. Thank you very much. And the methodology of rehabilitation in China, I have heard a report, is the direction that can be developed and which will be very useful. But now, Yuri, are you ready to start to work? Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. I wanted to introduce Yuri Davrovsky, one of the most famous sinologists. He has published two fantastic books. One of them is the biography of Xi Jinping, and it's incredibly popular in China. He has traveled through the Silk Route, and I have told you already that Yuri Davrovsky is the chairman of the expert council of the committee, and Every Tuesday at 12 o'clock he provides brilliant lectures inviting the most prominent experts in various fields. Thank you very much for such a flattering introduction. I'm sorry, I also wanted to say that you should be here with us as a co-moderator of the preliminary program, but unfortunately Yuri had no possibility to come, so we are happy to have you at least in such a way. Thank you very much for the invitation, but due to this damn coronavirus, I had to stay home. Distinguished colleagues, we have returned in our mind to the year 1945, to the Yalta conference, and we can't say that we cannot see now the same processes. Well, this process is a second front. We know that the defeat of Germany and Japan is mainly explained by the fact that their leaders started the war at two fronts, and the victory of the USSR is explained by the fact that our leadership managed to avoid opening the second front, and we fought with Japan after we defeated the Germany. And this wouldn't be possible without the support of China. And here, starting from 1937, Stalin managed to tie up the Japanese forces and to turn a blow aside from our Far East. And the help that the Soviet Union provided to China with armament and with military advisor, and the success at the Kasan Lake and at Halkingol sobered the imperial headquarters. And the promise that Japan gave to Hitler to attack the USSR in accordance with the Plan Kantoho-M was several times delayed by the Japanese under different excuses. On the 29th of August 1941, Japan was supposed to attack the Soviet Union, but they didn't do that. It is hard to imagine how the situation would develop in 1941-1942 if we had the second theater of operations in the east. And the resistance of China became the second front which we were expecting from our Western allies. And there are two great defeats which coincided in the time, the Moscow operation and Changsha. Siberian forces were redeployed to Moscow as soon as we received the information about the success of China. And China helped not only the Soviet Union but also the USA. By that time, 2/3 of land power of Japan forces were in China, and that's why only 1/3 of them attacked Pearl Harbor. On the 25th of December 1941 started the siege of Hong Kong, and just several days were needed to defeat the British in Malaya. 6 days were necessary to defeat Singapore, an unassailable fortress, as the British called it. In Indonesia, the resistance lasted for nearly 2 months. About 4 months were necessary to defeat the Americans in the Philippines. None of the colonies of the Western countries could stay for more than Wuhan 4 months, Shanghai 3 months, Changsha, and some other hero cities of China. And at the European theater, the resistance was much weaker. It took 43 days to defeat France, 23 days to defeat Poland. The Czech Republic did not resist at all. And the Soviet Union was also the second front for China. We sent food and arms, and we kept the Kwantan army at its place. Entering the war in August 1945, we defeated its allied forces and prevented the resistance which could have continued for several months even after the capitulation of the Japanese metropolis, because they had about 500,000 soldiers there and tens of thousands of Japanese settlers. Moscow also played an important role in the victory of communists and in the creation of the Chinese People's Republic, and several months after the proclamation of the Chinese People's Republic, we again were in the situation of the Second Front and took the main blow in the fight in the Korean War. Back to back, USSR and China prevented the Third World War. On the geopolitical scales, the cooperation of Moscow and Beijing played the most important balancing role. On the other hand, on the contrary, the Cold War in 60s and 80s was extremely counterproductive, and we had to provide extreme pressure. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, the USA believed that they are selected by lot and the efficiency of the socialism with Chinese specificity has provided phenomenal success. And the geopolitical scales have swung again in over time. The globalization has been speeded up, and a couple of years ago the USA started another Cold War against China and then against Russia. At the moment, Trump is repeating the mistakes of Hitler, starting the war at two different fronts, and the defeats which we are already seeing make this war very unpredictable. There will be a very hard week before the elections. For the guarantee of peace, we need a strategic partnership between Moscow and Beijing. Putin and Xi Jinping are generating very interesting peaceful initiatives. Our idea of the Big Five meeting is very promising. The Chinese idea of creating a very promising positive energy charge, and the initiatives and the existing structures, CSO and BRICS, can prevent global crisis. Russia and China again become the second front for each other. We should remember the lessons of the Second World War and never repeat our past mistakes. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much once again. I once again would like to recommend those who are interested to watch the webinar by Vladimir, and I loved one of the latest webinars. This webinar will be soon available on the Facebook and on the YouTube, and I would like to announce my book America versus China, and it's dedicated to the last 2 years. It has been published a month ago. If anyone have any questions, could you please send us the links to the YouTube? Yuri, they're asking for a link to your YouTube channel. What is the easiest way to find? All the previous webinars are already there. The easiest way is to get to the website of the Russian-Chinese Committee of Friendship, Peace and Development. Thank you very much. And I can't deny myself a pleasure to introduce my friend. He looks very young, but in fact he has been involved in Chinese studies for 53 years already. And he looks very young because he is dealing with China. And he will show you his book. We made our postgraduate studies together. Thank you very much. I would like to thank once more the organizers of this conference and the Institute, the Sorokin Institute and the pedagogical branch of the Federal Vernadsky Institute who organized a conference here. And we now know that they are learning Chinese and that we will probably invite the Chinese investors here. And I was in Shenzhen, and they said that in Shenzhen and that Crimea have something in common. That's lavender. Lavender grows in 3 places: in the Crimea, in France, and in Shenzhen. So here we have some similarities. I will speak about different things. I wanted to speak about the conversions of the Eurasian Economical Partnership and the Silk Way. I will not speak about the advantages, I will speak about the problems. There are not only advantages, but there are also problems when we incorporate the Crimea into the system of Russian-Chinese cooperation. I just want to say that the main thing is that we should use the Chinese opportunities to implement the big Eurasian Partnership. There is a Eurasian Economical Unit and there is the Silk Way. We can speak for a long time about the Eurasian Partnership, but when we are looking at this current situation, everything is actually explained by the Russian-Chinese trade connections, by education and investment connections, and because our partnership is the main part of this partnership. So, on the one hand, this Eurasian partnership is led by Russia, and we are speaking about the transparent system and to enlarge the market, to get the access to the European countries, because at the current moment there are 3 corridors in the Silk Way, but they are not enough for China. At the moment there are certain problems. When we created the economic ways of the Silk Way, we should think about the strategies of economic development, and the main thing here is the transit transport system which is existing at the moment. So twice Putin said that we need to develop the big Eurasian partnership. So it was said in 2016 in St. Petersburg, where he offered the concept of the big Eurasian partnership, and he called us to create big partnerships, to create connections with Europe and the United States. And it's very important to provide negotiations between Russia and China. And in November 2018 there was a forum of Russian-Asian Forum in Vietnam, and Putin again spoke about the big Eurasian partnership. What are the main scenarios of development? First of all, the convergence of Eurasian economic partnership and the Silk Way, and we can use work here through the free trade zone, because the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is pretty limited in its possibilities, but they are not so much developing the economical part as they are developing politically. The second issue is the infrastructure, the construction of a high-speed railroad Moscow-Beijing. I have heard about it many times. I first heard about it 5 years ago when vice head of our railroad, Lapidus, was speaking at a conference, and he said that I will do everything possible to build this high-speed railroad as soon as possible. 5 years have passed and nothing has happened, and this line is shortened. It was at the moment today it was mentioned that the railroad is being built between Moscow and Kazan, but still there is too much to do. And the third part is the strategical partnerships through the big European partnership. I would like to mention that if we compare our possibilities, in Russia we have more possibilities, but we have less real projects. If we compare with Kazakhstan and Belarus, Kazakhstan is actually working in the free trade zone, and there we have the gas line, which and they have a gas tube which is going to China, and they pump 30 billion cubic meters of gas every year. They really have the free trade zone, and they use the purchase. They transit the goods from China through Kazakhstan to Europe, and they have well-developed routes for tourists and businessmen. For Belarus, they have a huge industrial park, and they keep there all the IT people, the big stone, and whatever we say about Alexander Lukashenko, nevertheless, their project is working, and in Russia we don't have such zones, and we don't know. I think that Vladimir doesn't know when such zones will be created. I would like to say that there are certain points of connection where we probably don't pay enough attention, and I would probably like to pay more attention here and to speak about the Society of Science and Techniques. Unfortunately, we don't pay enough attention to our cooperation in this field. I will give a simple example. In 2017, some people were present there. Some people who are present here were present there. I was speaking about the free trade zone and about the Silk Route and the Chinese initiative One Belt, One Way. And I said that it would be nice for our country to cooperate with China in science and technical field. But there was Ms. Ivanova who said we should not hurry up here, we should wait. There is nothing special there. They say that's interesting, but China, no. And the president of the Russian Academy of Science said that our chemists, our physics were there, but they haven't noticed anything interesting there. Let us see what happens in 5 years. Okay, 3 years have passed. I just want to show what technologies, what results they have in China. So we cannot say that they also have some problems in science and higher direction. It's hard to get, for example, they had a task to receive the funds for the research up to 2.5% of GDP, but today they have 2.19%. So they have not reached that amount, but they have nice results. The three major problems of China, which are keeping them back, not the market, but real problems. First, their population. The problem is not that they have too many people, but the problem is that the majority of this population is coming into the elderly age, and who will work for them? Who will keep up those elderly people? The second problem is environment. As Valery said yesterday, in China the problems should be multiplied by 2. And the third problem is the lack of energy and resources. They are trying to solve it in all kinds of ways. 2/3 of their energy comes from coal, and you know what coal makes to environment. It's contamination of air, of land, of water. So China is trying as hard as they can to get resources. The share of their renewable resources is 12%, and that's more than in Germany. So China is already on the first place in the world in terms of renewable resources, but they still believe that they have somewhere to grow. In 2007, they started to create a roadmap of development of their science and technique for the next 40 years. They have 8 major economical and social infrastructures that they are trying to solve the problem. The 3 key issues are the revolution in healthcare, the use of genetic kinds of treatment, the second, the change in the environment protection, and the third is alternative ways of energy resources. And this report, which was made by Vladimir, the then president, he said that it is important to forecast the situation in science and technology till 2050, and they wanted to create to provide the security in energy, in resources, in social issues, in environment, in space and in the ocean. So this roadmap was created for 8 key directions. First, the sustainable development of energy. Second, the newest materials and ecological manufacturing. The third, informational networks. The fourth, the development of agriculture and bioproduction. Fifth, healthcare. And sixth, the environment protection. Seventh, the development of space and sea. And the eighth, the state and social security. So these 8 directions will be developed in China in the nearest 30 years. And in January 2011, the Academy of Science of China said that they wanted to create the Renovation 2020. It was a program which would reset the development of science and technology in China, and they had 22 key initiatives. The first initiative to improve the competitiveness of China at the world market. I will not name all the 22. I will tell you the main: to improve the recycling of waste, to provide sustainable development of China. So there is a system of renewable resources, the stem cells, cerebrology, the nuclear power, the initiatives for the social safety of China, space and use of healthcare control, education, including studies of dark materia and dark energy, and interdisciplinary studies, and they paid special attention to nanotechnologies. Whatever you say, they have some very sound success. And starting from this year, they have 3 main documents for the development of technology and science. First, the plan for the development from 2006 to 2020. The next, the education reform, and the third is the development of new talents. And I would say that the most important thing is correlated with Eurasia is the focus on education. Here is where we are strong and where we can add China to our potential. We probably cannot add anything into their industry because they produce everything, and we can only add here oil, nickel and gas. And as for science and technology, we do have some success, and we can achieve something. What is happening here? The Academy of Science was nearly closed in 2013. We have the Ministry of Education, and we have the initiative on the development of educational programs with China. There are more than 700 projects, and it's interesting how many of them have been implemented. I think no more than 5, and we are saying that it's the problem of coronavirus. And out of those 700, there are less than 10 in the field of science and technology, and the Academy of Science is somewhere beyond this project. And in this situation, we are losing in the field where we actually can be the winners, and here we can be competitive with anybody. We can just complement them here. And also, I would also like to mention that in the field of informatization of people, 15 years ago, the representatives of the high economic school said that there is no internet in China. It was 15 years ago, but it was there, and up to now. I would just tell you a couple of numbers. Now there are 900 million of internet users who are using internet. They have the hugest internet companies, like Amazon, Baba, and so on. And if we are speaking Tencent or Tencent in China, in February 2018, their capitalization was $32.4 billion. And this is their success in technology and science, and all these results they received during the last 5 years. Russia can be of use and can cooperate with China here, and within the big Eurasian Partnership. It's very important for Russia, and in case of implementation of this project, we will make one belt of bipolar world, and the main theme here is not to provide China with oil and gas. If we only deal with that, it will be like the agreement between the horseman and a horse, and we will become half a colony for China. But we should develop science and technology, and today the Eurasian Partnership is still under construction, and here lies a strategical part of our partnership, and we should create mutually useful partnership. And in the end, I would like to recommend a book which I have just published. It is called China is Becoming the Economical Superpower, and here I'm showing the results we have achieved starting from 1978, and how they managed to do this. And I also speak about the main problems and the main achievements and the place of China in the world order and in the trade connections. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you. If there are any questions, may I ask one question? You are saying that Russia is a big country and it's sometimes hard to implement something. Let us start with something small. Let us create a small model in our pedagogical academy, and then we will scale it for the whole of Russia. What kind of model? What is an optimal model for you? To gather Chinese students or some business model? It might be a business model, and we can speak about it later on. We'll read your book. Yes, I think some very real interest, and as a Chinese proverb says, the way in 10,000 leagues starts with one step. If we are speaking about only big partnerships, then something might work. As it has been mentioned today, the road has been constructed. They have invested 100,000 yuan, 100 billion yuan invested, and they had only 5 million tons of goods. I mean, no, I meant 5 million tons of goods. Yes, but what was the project capacity? When you are creating a project, there is always some project capacity in a year, in 3, in 5 years. We should be very sober here. I used to work as a minister of economical connections in Crimea, and I had 3 manufacturing institutes. We don't have any industry and any production in Crimea. We should be very sober. We actually probably don't have such roads in other regions. We don't have such huge bridges. That is done for tourists. Okay, tourists, I'm happy for the tourists. Okay, but we are speaking about freights, about goods. Why invest so much money if you don't have anything to transport? I would like to disagree with you here. Why? There are a lot of problems in Crimea, but first of all, we should solve infrastructure programs in order to solve some other problems. First of all. Second of all, we should see what happened here during the last 25 years and how Crimea was turned into what it looks like today. And the third issue is that we have a lot of problems in our country, but there is no such other region which would be in such external and internal isolation as Crimea. The similar situation was for Hainan Island in China. And if we are precise, there was an example of the Chinese railroad when Nikolai II decided that to construct a railroad through China, and they started to construct it in 1896, and in 1903 they stopped it, and Harbin was created in 1898 as a city of the railroad constructions, and on the whole way from Tomsk to Vladivostok there was just nothing there. So it was like the great China way, but starting from the beginning of the 20th century, the tea was transported by sea or by railroad. So if we create the infrastructure, then the freights will go in some time. So, but there should be some kind of a stimulus. There should be some production who will be able to accept those freights. Are there many plants who need those plants? Are there any plants which will need those freights, at least with the Russian Federation? I can give you a similar example in China. For example, there is a railroad to Tibet. Who has tried to travel there? I have tried. There were 2 lectures there, one in Sinin. There is the headquarters of the construction company, and the second lecture in the city of Lhasa, where the local administration was speaking about the conclusions, the advantages and disadvantages they had because of this railroad. And we have found out that they are bringing all kinds of freights to Tibet, because Tibet is not producing anything, though there are 1.5 million people, and they need a lot of things because they are lacking just everything. They only have their own water and beer. They have barley, but nevertheless, They need more than they have. And is that railroad paying for itself? No, it isn't. Why? Because they cannot bring anything from Tibet. So they are bringing in everything, and the only thing that they can take out is beer, which is produced on the basis of this mountain water. So we should find some advantages in order to create such railroads. Politically, this railroad is very important because the citizens of Lhasa and Beijing can get to each other by railroad. It took 1 week to go to Beijing from Tibet. Now it takes only 3 days by railroad. I would like to make 2 comments. First of all, about the railroad. Today we have trains going through the bridge, and then they go to Chankoi, because today they don't go straight, because all the railroads were going from north to south. Now they are going from east to west. So they now should have the railroad to Simferopol and to Sevastopol. And the second problem is that we don't always have to take out things that are produced and take into something that is consumed. We now have 7 seaports in Crimea which are not working, and Novorossiysk is overloaded. And in the south direction we have lots of countries, Syria, the Arabic world, and so on, and we should involve those ports and bring these freights through Crimea. This is something that we are proposing. There is an infrastructure, there is a strong infrastructure. Tavrida is a highway which is unique for Russia. Where is the way out to use the transitional potential of Crimea to develop our ports? We have 7 ports. We wanted to meet with the administration of Yalta freight port, but there is no freight port anymore. The ports are not used, the Sevastopol, so they are long forgotten. We have to develop them, and we have very clearly worded the creation of transport logistics center in Crimea, which will provide for this transit. And we have unique technologies which we can offer. Here today, China wants 1 billion tons of grain. The Arabic world, all the Arabic countries want to receive our grain, but there is nothing to bring that grain with, and we don't have the ships, we don't have the ports, we don't have the transitional bases, we don't have the warehouses, we don't have the terminals. Thank you very much. I would like to provide 2 more small remarks. First of all, we absolutely agree that we need to develop scientific and technological partnerships, and on the 26th of August were signed the agreements on scientific and technological partnership with China, and during and after the coronavirus. In China the situation is much better, and the growth of industrial production of many science-intensive industries in China made 15%. And at the same time, all the other countries failed. This is what is happening in China. We also spoke today about the infrastructural cooperation. In fact, it's not that easy. Andrei said that about the high-speed railroad Moscow-Beijing. Just imagine that what will happen if that road was already here. 32 hours from Moscow to Beijing. I have traveled from Moscow to Beijing twice. Wow. But when we are speaking with our Chinese partners, it is good that we can have such sincere conversations, and we ask, where is the problem? The Chinese say, okay, let's create this high-speed road. But who will pay for that? We will pay for that. The China. And the traffic of passengers will be Chinese. The rail stock will be also Chinese. So in Russia we will have just this high-speed road. We don't have high-speed roads in Russia, but China is covered with them. The Chinese say, what is your part of this partnership? Will you just wait to the trains passing by? They are waiting for our proposals. And when we are speaking about the creation of transport and logistics centers, in China they have already 10 centers while we're speaking. If we are working together, then this is profitable for all. And we are ready to construct, to take part in those transport and logistics centers. In each deal there is some way out, but we should learn the question, study the question, and there are offers for Crimea as well. But if we don't think about developing ports, we are just breathing. Novorossiysk is out of breath because their port is overloaded. And we are speaking about this, we discuss these issues. What if we try to use our Crimea, 7 Crimean ports, and we will bring this 100 million tons of freight easily? There are some very interesting issues which we try to develop through the Black Sea Association of Economical Cooperation. There were automobile and railroads around the Black Sea. But you understand pretty well that today it's impossible to connect those parts, politically impossible. So each such kind of question needs a very deep knowledge and deep study, and it's very interesting to speak about such aspects of our cooperation. And even if you are not an expert in China, I'm also not an expert in China, but I'm taking part in a competition which is headed by Mr. Belousov, and it's called The Strong Ideas for the New Times. And at the moment there are 14,000 of strong ideas being offered for this competition, and to my surprise we have been chosen for the final stage of this competition. And those who have studied our offer said, oh, you know what you were speaking about. We were speaking about the organizations, the societies with the same fate as the humanity. The Chinese phrase which Xi Jinping likes to repeat. As Yuri has just said, he has also been in the society of the common fate with humanity. I quoted Xi Jinping, we are ready to strengthen our cooperation through the electronic business, through creating the zone of informational economy and stimulate the investment and trade in a global scale. And this is an hieroglyph. I took it from Wikipedia. There is a community there with the same fate with the humanity. And this is where our project started, which is now in the final stage of this competition. The problem is that this year 7 million people on the earth have lost their job thanks to robotization. In 30 years, another half of the humanity will be left unemployed. And it's a huge problem. And for China, this will be very painful. So how do we propose to solve it? We see three whales here. The first whale is the discrepancy between the creative self-expression and search for work. The second is the disconnection of participants, when each participant is only thinking about his own interest and people are not ready to cooperate. And the third whale is the low efficiency of the social economical system. We offer three solutions. The first, the structural code of imagination. It's an absolutely new technology of thinking, which we are already using. It's a convergence model of network cooperation and double-contoured economy. I will pass it by. So the model with the traditional Confucianism is very similar to something that is laid in the cultural roots of Russia. And this is the platform which will allow us to unite not only because of material interest, but first of all from the spiritual point of view. The essence of our project is laid on the three wheels. The first one is the structural code of imagination, which is like a genome. In biology, with the help of genes, you can create sheep and even people. You can reproduce with the help of genetic engineering, and we created the genome of the result of intellectual activity, and with that help we can measure anything that is created by human mind. It's a tool which is necessary to measure the results of intellectual activity. As for the convergent model, this is the cooperation of a robot and a human being. They should cooperate between themselves because the efficiency of human brain may be much more than one. And when we unite them, we receive the efficiency ratio more than 0.62. This is the golden ratio which is necessary for the sustainable development. And thanks to the fact that we are connecting the conversions of human and inhuman, we are getting the necessary rate of efficiency. As for the economy, we have created a commercial but non-legal entity. We have an account in Tinkoff Bank, and through IP we connected it with our network, and we created a Bitcoin, and it's working inside, and it's a kind of it's a floodgate for the big economical growth, and we will be able to provide a much more higher efficiency rate. And we would like to invite China to connect to our consortium. So we are working together with Kazakhstan, and we are using their money as well. And if China would join here, I think it would be in much stronger. Here I show the scheme, how it works. We transform the energy of human cooperation into the economy. But we believe that we are offering a tool to manage the cognitive activity of a human being, and we offer the instrument to create such a society with the common fate with humanity. It's not a motto, but it's a very specific result which we are offering for you to join. Thank you very much. We are coming to an end. We have two minor reports. I would like to give floor to Gennady Potapenko. I know how much you have done in the field of Chinese cooperation. Could you please share your experience with us? Good afternoon. I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation, especially Vladimir Remyga and the administration of the Academy for this platform. I am the head of the public organization which used to be called the Association Crimea China. Now it is called Crimea Jungu. It so happened that this forum is being held when we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of our organization. We were created in 2000 and we took part in nearly all important events which were held between Crimea and China. For example, our experts took part in the preparation of all the materials that were being prepared for the reception in Crimea of two chairmen of the Chinese People's Republic in 2001 and in 2011. And we are very happy that many of our ideas managed to get through the eyes of ignorance, of misunderstanding, and today you actually have already spoken about some things which we initiated. For example, today we spoke about the necessity to create the Chinese house in Crimea. It's our idea. It was offered as a separate clause in the agreement on the cooperation between Crimea and Hainan in 2002. Both sides signed this document and they decided that structure was absolutely necessary here. And another participant of our conference, Mr. Kajali, also mentioned it, and a number of other initiatives. And the support of some of such initiatives give me a lot of enthusiasm. For example, at the previous Jubilee in 2015, we offered the initiative to provide a forum with a conditional name Yalta 2. And we are a small regional public organization, and probably it would sound very naive if each next year would not show us the necessity, the need for such initiative, because Yalta is an important place for the world policy, symbolic place for the communication of different states, and not only for communication but for reaching agreements. This is all due to our history, and probably we don't need any advertisement here. And our experts did everything possible to clear the way for the cooperation, for the contact of two countries, two people, and let us speak about the current situation and the future. In the Russian history, our organization provided the first press tour for the Chinese journalists right during the referendum. As you understand, the situation was very stressful. We invited the journalists of one of the leading newspapers, Global Times. It's an external newspaper, and the world was watching this situation with the eyes of Chinese journalists. In 2015, we provided the first promo tour for Chinese tour operators. There were 8 strong, prominent Chinese tourist companies, and one of them brought the first organized group of Chinese tourists to Crimea. And when we are speaking about the future kinds and fields of cooperation, we always see a lot of problems, the majority of which is explained by the long distance between our countries and the lack of trustworthy information about each other and lack of specialists who could create such contacts and accompany us. And we have a number of initiatives, a number of offers on how to overcome those problems. Some of them are included in the plan on the development of cooperation between China and Crimea, about which we spoke today. And the Chinese house is also mentioned there as a separate clause, but still we are still there. This is not moving. And following the initiative of our moderator not to speak only about some advantages, I also wanted to speak about the problems. It is necessary to, you said today that it's necessary to translate the touristic portal, and we had already tried to do that. We have allocated 1 billion rubles, but unfortunately it was done with the help of Google Translate. Our experts, when they read that portal, found such bloopers as, for example, our famous 35th artillery battery was described with the Chinese word which means battery, not an artillery battery, but the battery as a power source. And the new administration of the Ministry of Tourism thankfully killed this wonderful creation, but we have the same question as our moderator has today has asked: where is the money? Where is that billion? I can't stay aside from the discussion which was voted today about the roads, the logistics. Unfortunately, Crimea is a deadlock, and it will be a deadlock until we don't have a free way Simferopol, Perikop, and later on to the European border. Only then we will stop being a deadlock. As for our ports, I am extremely sorry for their fate. None of them can be used for the transloading of grain, just because each of them is situated inside quite busy cities. And just imagine Yalta with caravans of trucks with grain. Tourism. This will kill tourism here. Also, they spoke about the huge hi-fi terminal in Taman, and which is killing all the Crimean ports. Let us forget about the Crimean ports as as a places of serial transloadings can happen. We will rather be used as yacht ports. I feel the anger of all the patriots of our industry, but we are a touristic semi-island, and our experts are experts in tourism, and they brought the first Chinese tourists to Crimea starting from 1990s, and our experts know quite a lot about Chinese and tourism, and we hear with all the conversation about Chinese and tourism, because it means mass tourism here. And when we are asking the authors of such ideas if they have a recipe, if they have a solution for so that the tourism in Crimea doesn't become the tourism as in St. Petersburg or in Moscow or in the Far East, when Chinese tourists are met by Chinese guides, they are brought by Chinese buses, they are buying from Chinese shops, and they are living in Chinese hotels, and the region just gets the money for the tickets to the museums and all the waste that is left by Chinese tourists. And this will be a trouble not only for us but for Chinese tourists as well, because this is a very cheap tourism. Crimea should become a point of educational, recreational and natural tourism, and it's a luxury tourism place. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Ten. We know him pretty well. Well, in the beginning of 1990s, he came to Crimea and he was interested in our logistics, and I hope that the presence of such a serious structure in Crimea will manage to push from the deadlock the situation with our Semyanin. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have a short last report. Very briefly, please. Katerina Sukupova. Please be brief because the bus is already waiting for us. Good afternoon, dear guests and participants of our conference. I will be brief. I will speak about the learning of Chinese language in our humanitarian pedagogical academy and the role of the Informational Cultural Chinese Center for the Development of Cooperation between China and Crimea. Our department, the Foreign Philology, Chinese language, literature and English language, was launched in 2014. Up to now we have 4 courses of bachelor's, future translators and teachers of Chinese. On the whole, we only have 55 students. That's a very low number, but we are focused on the quality of their education, and we have the following disciplines. We have a practical course of English and Chinese languages, business Chinese, statistics, history of Chinese literature, practice on business communication, and these are very important fields. And from the academy, we do everything possible to educate our students. Yearly, our international department brings up new Chinese professors. At the moment, there are 2 professors, me and a Chinese Professor Andrei Shu, which allows students to get the skills of oral and written forms and to develop their audition skills and translation skills. As for our equipment, we provide all the practical subjects. We study in special auditorium, which you have seen today, and we have lingophone courses, we have the computers, we have everything that is necessary. As for the library, we have a lot of materials and manuals and books in Chinese language. We have video materials, we have an access to internet resources and remote accesses to other resources, to other libraries. During the education, the students go through different kind of practices of internship, pedagogical, scientific and research internships. The successful students can go for internships into China, and up to now we had 2 summer internships in Shanghai in Sunai in 2018 and last year in Beijing. This direction we developed with great enthusiasm. In May 2018, at the base of our academy, as it was already said, we opened Chinese Information Cultural Center. And in this Culture and Information Center, we prepare informational literature, we create tourist guides in Chinese, and last year we translated the website of our academy into Chinese. It was quite a technically hard problem because as the only translator, I could not fulfill this all by myself. We need very qualified people. As far as we know, today we are providing education to 3,000, as far as I know, foreign students, and we can provide different events which will be provided with the help of Chinese side. At the moment, there is a necessity to publish informational materials and guides about cultural and historic places and monuments. And as for the development of bilateral cooperation, there are such important tasks as cooperation in inter-university cooperation and sharing of students and inviting students to teach our students and to create connections between the cities. And we hope to open a Confucius school on the basis on our academy. And thank you very much for this forum, this possibility to get to know each other, and we hope for the further cooperation and for sharing the students. Just one question. Do you plan any kind of geography, of history, of economy? Do you teach this? Yes. This is something that we don't have a separate department of technology, but we hope to create such a department. I will be very enthusiastic about it. I graduated from Humanitarian Pedagogical Department in the Far East. Yes, I was there. So that is my basis, my hometown. I love my teachers, and here I have been working here for 4 years, and I'm trying to do everything possible. Thank you very much. Just a few words in the very end. Dear participants, it's not that easy. You know, my first personal opinion, which I read in your eyes and what we were speaking about, these are puzzles, fantastic puzzles of the world's order. If we could, at some basics, unite all these pieces of puzzle and create some working model, I would say to you, Crimea for China is a relatively toxic territory. Why? We should remember about that. We were told that the 2 chairmen of the Chinese People's Republic came here. Let us do everything possible to bring Xi Jinping here. But it will be a symbol of the fact that the Chinese have understood. Stop looking back on the West, on the sanctions, and war is war. Let us be friends with Crimea, let us acknowledge it and work with it. And I think that we have done everything possible in Crimea. And let us write a banner, Xi Jinping, come to Crimea. Thank you very much once more. Thank you for your participation. I think it was a very useful discussion. Sometimes there were some unexpected things due to technological problems, but we have signed the agreement and we have agreed to open the institute, Confucius Institute here, and with such a level of enthusiasm. And the last word, my word to you, dear students. My son, who graduated from Beijing University, is the director of Chinese direction in Skolkovo. That's why I wish you all the success, and with your participation I hope that we will bring Xi Jinping to this hall.